Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Riverdale Season 7, Episode 15. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, I thought this is just so interesting how this episode was done, because the episode revolves around mainly the female cast, which obviously they've all had parts to play in throughout the story, obviously, but this is the first time we've had like a mainly female-centric cast. Like, obviously there's male, in the episodes, but they're a smaller percentage. I'd say like the female cast makes up like 80% of the episode. So I'd probably even push it to 85, 90, even 90. So I think that's so interesting. And obviously, this revolves around a pageant for Miss Teen Riverdale. And obviously it's something that Alice is really pushing and Betty's kind of against because of just how like, the stigmatism that a pageant would have in general, just kind of like, it just feels like it's all about kind of the male gaze. And it's like, especially the swimsuit section where it's like, yeah, I'm sure that is the judge's favorite section of the whole ordeal. But it's like, yeah, it can be very like, it's just meant to like, all that matters is kind of beauty and blah, 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 blah. Like, it has that negative connotation to it. So Betty doesn't want anything to do with it until she learns one of the prizes is a scholarship. And everyone else is kind of coming at it for different things. Veronica's hoping to use it as an opportunity to bolster her business because there's like limits to what she can do as a business owner because she's a woman, in fact, she's a young woman entrepreneur. So there's limits on that. Midge has obviously got the whole situation of she wants to feel beautiful, and get to experience life as a teenager because she's going to have to grow up extremely fast. Her and Fangs are having a child. And it's like, this might be my last time just being able to be a teenage girl, a 16-year-old. Cheryl has to kind of placate her parents, but if she wins, she plans on using that platform to uplift any like other group that's disenfranchised, because that's what Tony's doing, because this is the first time a pageant like this has been integrated, and she is going to be, she's like, I have a very slim chance, but if I win, I want to showcase, and I'm going to call out this pageantry and this whole situation for being what it is, that it keeps out the marginalized groups. And then Evelyn's in it just for, Evelyn's, sake. So, which I should also note, because I was just thinking the entire episode, I was like, you suck, Evelyn. Because I love when they're gathered around and Evelyn's making these little snide comments, and then you have Cheryl be like, why are you even sitting over here? It's like, why are you? You act like you don't like anyone in this group, so why are you sitting next to him? Because I think for Evelyn, it is the thing of she doesn't have any friends at all, so even people who don't like her and people she kind of doesn't like, they're the closest thing she has to friends, so I think that's why she doesn't have anyone else to go. I should also note, I didn't know the actress Zoe who plays Evelyn, she gets the Joffrey treatment. At least she did back in like I want to say season 4 when the farm and everything, because I was reading something recently. I think I looked her up when she popped up, because I wasn't sure of her name. I'm going to butcher her name, so I'm just going to call her by her first name, Zoe. But she, I think, got a lot of backlash because, Evelyn is meant to be a despisable character. You're not meant to like her, but I think it's one of those weird things, like I referenced Joffrey. I'm not a Game of Thrones person. I haven't watched Game of Thrones. Nothing against the show, just haven't done it yet. Haven't kind of, done that yet. But either way, the point I was going to make is that Joffrey, isn't that why the actor who played Joffrey kind of quit? Because, so many people could not separate him from the character. It's it's a testament to you when you're able to play a despicable character so well, because it's like, oh no, it's you connecting with this character and bringing, in Evelyn's case of Zoe's able to take the words that the writers are made and even able to personify it so beautifully in a character. You're like, I can't stand you. Literally no one wants to sit down and talk to you, and just every chance they get, I love Tony and Cheryl are constantly shitting on her, because it's like, you suck because you're up here complaining the entire time. Because I love that the episode focuses on everyone else, and she's kind of like the extra character in that, and just once again just popping up with her. It's like, once again, why are you sitting with us? Sit anywhere else. But it's like, right, we're all in this together. Plus, once again, I don't think she has any friends, so she'd rather have frenemies than be all alone. Maybe that's something we'll get in these next couple episodes, kind of a deep dive and kind of change in Evelyn. Episode might tip the scales towards that. Maybe not. We'll have to see. But like her bigotry and just her just being kind of a terrible person. Once again, that's a testament to the actress Zoe being able to do such a good job representing that character. But it is not a representation of the actress. I feel like I should always state that though, because I like a character you love to hate. Because you're like, oh, you suck. But once again, it just proves how good the actor who plays them is, because they're able to take this despisable character and bring them alive. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that. But something else that didn't even click in my head and I thought was so interesting, when you think about a lot of the connections between all of this, how it all kind of works out. So the fact is that, okay, so Fangs and Midge are together, but in the original timeline, Fangs is with Tony, who's now with Cheryl, because they originally were together, but they weren't in the, like season 6 on, right? So, Fangs was actually with Kevin, who is now back with Moose because him and Moose had a thing before. But who was Moose with? Moose was with Midge. So it's just funny how that all kind of connects like that. And especially because, oh, how did Midge die? She was killed by Hal back in season 2. So it's just like the connected threads there. I didn't even think about it until this episode. I mean, it was more so Alice that kicked Midge out of the competition, but it's still interesting to know like the Coopers had something to do with. I even love Betty be like, wait, did Midge die? It's like, no, she's still alive. It's like they had to write that because it's like it's a jacked up inside joke, because obviously she died in the original timeline. Which, speaking of that, I think, with Ethel, Dilton and Midge, I think it's so interesting that those characters, I'd assume it's the same actor who played Dilton back in the day too, but I could be mistaken. It might be a different actor. But either way, those characters have gotten a lot more screen time this season, especially like Dilton and Midge. Like, they have been very prominent this season, and even Ethel has been I think this might be the most prominent she's been in the show since season 1, and even then it might even be beyond season 1, because I want to say the last time we saw Ethel before she popped up in season 6 might have been season 3, the Gargoyle King season, because I don't think she was really in season 2. Maybe she was, but she was definitely in season 3, because that's when you also found out about her liking Jughead. So, but I don't know if she popped up in season 4 or 5. I don't really remember. I feel like season 6 might have been the first time we see her pop up in a very long time, and now she's pretty prominent in this final season. And so, like I said, because Dilton died back in season 3 himself with the Gargoyle King thing, so for him and Midge to kind of have a chance again, it's like, right, undoing a lot of like that death. So that's kind of like a bonus of like undoing all this, because it's like, well, Jason is Julian, but there's no like, there hasn't been any teen deaths. It's all been adult deaths over the course of this final season. So there hasn't been any like, none of the kids like that trauma and pain of like, oh yeah, it's so and so, like I said, like a Midge or a Dilton. So that's just kind of interesting. A big part of this story is obviously the complications between Alice and Betty. Because for Betty, once again, she wants nothing to do with this competition, but she signs up because of what Veronica had said. It's like, right, this could be your opportunity to kind of like live your life the way you want to. You don't have to adhere to what school your parents want to go to. You can take that scholarship money and you can just go wherever you want. But her mom has a little animosity towards it, because it's like, for one, you kind of besmirch this whole process, this whole situation. Then you add in the fact is, like, I know you're trying to make a stunt, because every time I put you in a situation where I want you to do what I want you to do, you put on some stunt. Because even Cheryl tried to go like, well, what about you and Archie and your peep show? It's like, yeah, but that was just between me and Archie. And also, he was in his underwear too, which I love. Veronica being like, oh, if only I was there. This is like, Jesus, she still longs for missing out on that opportunity. But also, it's like, well, what about on the show where you showed your underwear? It's like, yeah, but that was also a point that was meant to be a slap against my mother. So it's like, so it's understandable why Alice has a reservation. It's like, oh, I know you're trying to make a stunt. And it's like, because it's like, right, you do get good grades. You don't really need the scholarship. It's like, yes, but it's still a thing of, she probably have to, like, you would have so much say on where she went, because you would have, like, I was like, oh, if you did go to college, we would be the ones paying for it, so we would dictate where you got to go, because they dictate so much of her life. a scholarship would have gotten her a lot more freedom. She didn't really get a chance to say that because Alice didn't want to believe her. Because she's like, no, I don't want you to go to school. You could get a, an academic, degree and stuff like that. But, just kind of like, settle down and become like a housewife. I mean, we actually learned that Alice actually had dreams of becoming a steward, but she had to put them on pause because it's like, well, she married Hal. She eventually had Polly and eventually had Betty. And just those dreams kind of got washed away. It's a thing of, she kind of felt like, well, at this point in my life, this is kind of who I am, and those are just pipe dreams, and it's that thing of dreaming versus reality. It's like, yeah, that was a big dream of mine, but dreams are dreams. This is reality. This is the real world. Like motherhood and everything kind of comes first. Because Mary was kind of saying like, right, that's what we had for our generation, but this younger generation, they should be entitled to do more, to be able to be themselves. Because Alice is coming at this from older values rather than because that's what this season's about, the older values, the older generation choking the younger generation who wants to rebel, who wants to be themselves, who wants independence, who want independent thought and, and everything. So I think Mary picked up on it and didn't say anything, but she was like letting out Midge's dress. And the moment she brought that up, Alice perked up. It's like, because of course Alice would know. And that's why I think Mary ought to know because, well, they're both parents. They know what it's like. Oh, and well, we don't know how young they respectively were. You'd assume like Alice was in her 20s when she had her children. Probably like maybe mid to late 20s when she had her children. So Midge being a 16-year-old getting pregnant, especially in this time frame. So Alice found out, forced Midge to tell her the truth, and she got sent off to Sister Quiet Mercy, which everyone else knows is some BS, especially Ethel, who literally ran away from there. So she knows how BS that is. But yeah, Midge was removed from the competition because last thing we need is someone because Miss Teen Riverdale is being broadcast and they want to put their best foot forward. That's also why later on when Betty's like, hey, Ethel, you should participate, because Ethel secretly does. I do love that she has a Cinderella story this episode. It's really beautiful. And she's like, right, she wanted her parents back and they were alive in like her vision, and she wants to be able to do like her art and stuff like that, and her the comics and stuff that she wants to write and draw. And also, she wants Jughead to be her boyfriend, which is, I'm like, oh, that's super sweet. But yeah. But Alice had her reservations about including Ethel as well, because it's like, oh, you'll dig into her past. It's like, right. And then all the stuff about, yes. Like, the fact is, her parents were murdered. That shouldn't have to define her. Like, there's been so much bad in her life. Allow her to have some good. And that was kind of Betty's point of this whole thing could be so good for Ethel. The fact of the matter is she could use that scholarship to do whatever she wants to in her life. Like, there's so much darkness, there's so much bad in her life. Her parents got murdered, she was accused of it. The milkman tried to kill her. She was also sent off to the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. So it's like a lot of bad's happened in Ethel's life. But lately, obviously, post the milkman, like, there has been a lot of good as well in her life. Like, obviously, her and Jughead have spent a lot more time together. Jughead is like the only person who really fully unequivocally supported her when literally everyone was against her. So Betty's like, right, this could be important to her, but Alice wants to present Riverdale in a very particular light. And it's like, if Ethel wins, it's just going to like, people are going to dig into her and find out about all that stuff. But also, you're setting Ethel up to fail because she definitely won't win. And when she doesn't win, it's going to crush her, But for Ethel, it's like, this would mean the world to her because she wants to feel beautiful. And it's like, you are a beautiful person. And it's just like, she doesn't have the self-confidence. And it's just like, she deserves it, with everything that's come through in her life, but she's like mounted these walls and, scaled these walls of adversity that have come into her life and come out stronger for it. So Veronica and Betty end up kind of forcing Hal's hand and forces him. Because I was worried, I was curious about the Hal and Alice relationship, because when Betty was like about to talk to her mom and her mom was kind of breaking down a little bit and then Hal stepped in, I was like, it's Hal, because like some of the characters are kind of the duplicitous characters that they were beforehand. I mean, Alice, for example, is still a lot of Alice, and obviously you just slap on like a 50s values and everything. So a lot of like the core of who these characters are, you put it through a 50s filter, you kind of get them, and they kind of like double down in who they are, whether it's Alice or a Hiram kind of still being themselves. But with how kind of like what like Alice kind of putting him in his place, like, right, I've sacrificed so much for this life and everything, I've done so much for you, and you constantly undermine me. I thought Hal was a little bit more in control, but maybe that's because my thought at the time was maybe the secret that Alice is keeping, because what we know in the original timeline, it wasn't just two children. They had Charles, but granted, Charles wasn't hers and Hal's. Charles was FP's and Alice's. So I'm curious, and that probably it might be a thing of, yeah, she was with someone before Hal and did, like, maybe that's why the Midge thing kind of hit a little close home, because maybe she was in the exact circumstances, because we hadn't seen that pop up, but in this continuity, especially this time frame, and considering who Alice is, would she have had a Charles? But it could easily be a thing of she gave him away, and she tried to bury that part of her past to be the person she is, and maybe Hal knows about that, and he's trying to protect her from having to reveal that. Like, the fact is that, like, Alice broke down, like, she was about to talk to Betty a couple episodes back, but Hal jumped in, so I don't know if that had anything to do with that, or maybe it's just about how much of her life she wasn't able to leave. Like, yes, Betty has this freedom, and maybe Alice has some animosity towards her, because it's like, right, you look at what my life has become, and you look at my life like it's a problem. It's like, my life has good in it too, so why is it that my life, the life I want to lead, isn't good enough for you? It's like, yeah, but it's like, because it was good for you, but it doesn't mean it's going to fit Betty. Maybe Betty wants more, and maybe because you weren't able to have more, like, you didn't get to live your dreams, maybe that's kind of led to some animosity. It feels like, just like her overbearingness can be like a byproduct of her kind of projecting her, like, her own insecurities, her own, like, dreams she wasn't able to live and go about, and she kind of puts that all on Betty, because Betty's so rebellious. It's like, you should fall in line, you should be more obedient, you know? But either way, the competition goes down, and everyone does their thing, and I love that. It's like all the guys are at Pops, and it's just kind of like, I mean, I can't believe we're not doing the bathing suit, is what Julian said. And I love Jughead being like, oh yeah, well, what? That would mean you'd have to see your sister in a bathing suit. Oh, sounds kind of perfect. He's like, don't you have a comic book to write? In fact, I don't, because of your, so it's like, right, shut up. And it's like, let's focus on this. And everyone's excited. And it's like, wow, like this, and they're just like all amazed by, and it's just kind of like, whoa. But I love when Ethel comes out, she ends the show and destroys, dude. That's amazing. I was kind of worried she'd be nervous. I thought, okay, she'll be a little nervous and maybe mess up a little bit, but then she'll like rise to the occasion. But it's like, nah, started off kind of meekish, but then just like let it all out. Because it's like, right, like, love me. Can you like accept me for me and love me for me? And everyone was captivated. I even love, Clay being like, we should have built the entire musical around her. Because I was about to say, like, yeah, she's been a part of the musicals, she was part of it last episode. But I was like, yeah, Ethel hasn't had like a solo, has she, the entire show? So for us to have this moment for Ethel, like this to be Ethel's season, and for her to have this moment for this to be her, it was so beautiful. I was like, dude, and her like, it's like, whoa, I had no idea she had pipes on her like that. It's like, yeah. And just Jughead be like, wow, she can sing, she can draw. Like, what can this girl not do? And I think even Reggie said, I think I'm in love. I was like, dude. And so when it came down to it, I was nervous. I was like, please don't. Please let Ethel win. I was like, it's not going to be Ethel's win, is it? I thought like someone else would win, but everyone would be like, boo, boo, no, Ethel. And they'll have to like recast it and be like, all right, Ethel wins. I thought that's where things were going to go. I even love everyone holding hands, because the whole point was, no matter who wins, we're all in this together. And I love that Veronica's reaching for Evelyn's hand and she slaps it away like, no. Even later on, the final picture of the episode, it's like everyone's like smiling, looking for it, and then Evelyn's just looking the other way. It's just, I love it. But then Ethel wins. I was like, yes! Yeah, I legitimately got so excited because I was so nervous. I was like, oh, she's not going to win. And we find out she actually didn't win. that Betty's actually the one that won, interestingly enough. But Alice said Ethel's name because even Alice was captivated and she believed that it's like, right, you are right, Betty. She deserved to win with everything she's been through. But Alice tried to come at it from a snide point of view of like, right, she will have always won no matter what you tell yourself because of me. And it's like, oh, that's so douchey. But it's like, yeah, if it wasn't for me, Ethel wouldn't have won. Yes, your father and the other judges were mad at me for saying that, but at the end of the day, they couldn't do much about it because it was televised and it was live, so they had to go along with what I said. So, and it's like, right, whatever the consequences may be, which made it sound like there would be consequences for this. I thought more so for Betty, but even in that moment, Betty was like, you could say whatever you want. You can kind of cut me and say all these harsh things. But at the end of the day, what you did was a good thing. You finally did something nice for someone else. And it's like, at the end of the day, like, you did something because it was the right thing to do. And I love you, Mom. And she walks away. And that meant a lot to Alice because I think there's just been so much animosity between her and Betty. And I think that really just, like, it's like, right, there's been no love between them. And now for the first time to hear Betty say that, you know, they're just, once again, Alice has always been a complicated person. I've brought that up in time and time again, let alone this season, of just how there's good and then there's bad with Alice, you know? And sadly, a lot of the bad always ends up overriding the good. I think she's been a lot worse this season than she has been, like, good, you know? But she has those moments where she has those breakthroughs. And I think by the end of this all, Alice and Betty will have a stronger relationship because, I mean, before they ended up in the 50s, they were heading in that direction. So this could be the change that Alice needs. And I think, like I said, I hope Evelyn kind of is in that same boat as well. But then there's also the Fang situation. He wanted to go and rescue Midge, but it's like, right, you do that, you're going to cause more harm than good. So what you need to do is keep doing what you're doing, prove yourself, because you can't even let Midge's parents know that you're the baby daddy because they don't know who the baby daddy is currently. If they find out about you, you could get in trouble that way. So prove yourself as a musician, become a big time person, and then sweep Midge off her feet and you can take her away and, you know, get her family's approval finally because they denied you before. But it's like, right, a lot of that BS, you know, if it wasn't for all the BS and the standards and the classism of it all, then, you know, Midge and Fangs would be able to just happily be together right now. So, but they're going to have to spend some time apart, but they are both going to hold things down to, you know, Midge is going to try and stay strong and so will Fangs so that they can ultimately be together. So, just thought that was kind of like a nice way for things to play out, and especially at the very end where, Betty's responding as like the girl next door to everyone throughout the episode, like whether it's an Evelyn, an Ethel, a Veronica, a Tony, a Cheryl who sent in a letter, and she had talked about like kind of like regardless of like their circumstances, kind of saying like the future is theirs to kind of control and dictate. So, and it, you know, the last shot of the episode is zooming in on a picture of them from the competition. So all of them, and I was like, that was beautiful. Like I said, just kind of this neat like mainly focusing on the women of Riverdale episode, and I thought that was pretty dope. So very, very excited to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good